Well, hopefully those notes made some sense to most of you. But for those who it didn't make sense to, I'm going to work through maybe 4 or 5 problems here, and you can just work with me. If you need to pause the video at any time, feel free to pause the video. But I'm just going to start with number 1, and we'll just work on these together just like I was in class. And so let's just start with number 1. It says 5 halves A minus 4 thirds minus 1 equals negative 2 thirds. Just as a normal tip, just make sure that you're writing the problems right, that you're getting the negative and positive signs and everything like that right. First step on these is there's all these nasty fractions, and the trick was in the notes that we could get rid of those fractions by multiplying everything by the LCD, the least common, or LCM, the least common multiple of all those denominators. So the denominators are 2, 3, and 3. And so the least common multiple, the number that 2 and 3 both go into, the LCM in this one would be 6. So if we multiplied everything by 6, the fractions go away, then it becomes a much easier problem. So what I would do normally is I would just multiply each one of these numbers by 6. So the first number I would multiply by 6. The second number here I would multiply by 6. Don't forget you also have to multiply this number by 6. Even though it's not a fraction, you have to be fair and multiply the entire side by 6. And then over here I'll multiply it by 6 too. The genius of multiplying it by the LCM is it gets rid of the fractions. And so on this one, if I just kind of do the math like I talked about, just do 6 times 5, which is 30, divide by 2. So 6 times 5, divide by 2. 6 times 5 is 30, divide by 2 is 15. So that just turns into a normal 15a, and notice the fraction's gone. This next one here, 6 times 4 is 24. 24 divided by 3 is 8, so this just becomes minus 8. And then this is just 1 times 6, so that's 6, equals, and then on this other side, negative 2 times 6 is negative 12. Negative 12 divided by 3 is negative 4. So just notice how you went from like a, I don't know, what I would consider a nasty fraction problem to something that's much, much easier to solve. At this point, we would solve it just like normal. If you want, you can combine these like terms and make that a negative 14, or you could just add the 6 and then add the 8. It really doesn't matter. I'll start by combining like terms, and then after I do that, it's just farthest away, farthest away, farthest away. So at this point, I'm going to add 14, add 14. I'm going to get 15a equals 10. And so you'll notice almost all of these answers on the back. If you look at the answer key at the very bottom, every answer is a fraction. So we'll talk about cleaning up those fraction answers. So don't be surprised when you get decimals or fractions. So if I'm solving this, I want to get rid of it 15 times a. I divide by 15, divide by 15. And then I'm left with this. 10 divided by 15 is my answer. And you could leave it like that. That would be fine. Or you could just reduce fractions. Reducing fractions is just saying, well, what number can go into both of these? Both of these numbers here are divisible by 5. So if I divide both of these by 5, I would be left with 10 divided by 5 being 2, 15 divided by 5 being 3. And so my answer is A equals 2 thirds, which is the answer that is on the very bottom of the page, the 2 thirds. So if you want to do it that way, you certainly can. If you wanted to leave it as 10 divided by 15 and get a 0.666 on your calculator, that's all right. It's not the most common way to leave an answer, but it does make sense. All right, so there was number 1. You're going to notice a trick on these. They're almost done all exactly the same, but I wanted to work through a couple of them with you. And so let's look at number 2. Again, if you need to pause the video, feel free to pause it, go back, rewind, look. Use it however you need. As long as we learn, that's our big goal. All right, negative 7/4 plus 1/2 k equals 1/3 k minus 2. Again, this one's nasty because there's lots of fractions. But because of the trick we learned, we can get rid of the fractions in one small swoop just by multiplying everything by the LCM of all of the denominators. So LCM again is least common multiple. The denominators are 4, 2, and 3. So you have to think, well, what numbers does 4, 2, and 3 go into? And if you have to, you can write 4, 2, and 3 down here, and then write the multiples of 4. So 4 times 2 is 8, 4 times 3 is 12. You can write the multiples of 2. 2 times 2 is 4, times 3 is 6, times 4 is 8, 10, 12. And you could do all the multiples of 3. 3 times 2 is 6, 3 times 3 is 9, 3 times 4 is 12. And your goal is to find one that they have in common that's the smallest number. So 12 is the least common multiple. And so that's what I'm going to multiply everything in this by. So I'm going to multiply by 12 on every number in this equation, including this 2 at the end, because you have to multiply everything. If there's 4 things in here, you have to multiply by 4 different things. After you multiply by the least common multiple, the fractions go away, then it just becomes kind of a normal problem again. And so again, you are just going to grab your calc or do it in your head. Negative 7 times 12 divided by 4. If you don't know what that is, don't be embarrassed to grab your calculator and figure it out. So negative 7 times 12 divided by 4 is negative 21. So you can just grab that and say this right here turns into a negative 21 plus 1 times 12 is 12, divided by 2 is 6, so that's 6k. And then this one's 1 times 12 is 12, divided by 3 is 4, so this is a 4k. And then 2 times 12 is 24, and notice I put the minus sign here because it was a minus sign here. And so now I went from one with lots of fractions to one with no fractions, and now I can just solve it like normal, and I notice there's k's on both sides of the equal sign. And from last unit we talked if there's k's on both sides we have to get rid of one of them. A nice tip is to get rid of the smaller one. So we have to deal with just positives. So since 4k is smaller and this is a positive 4k, to get rid of it we'll subtract 4k, we'll subtract 4k. And then we're left with negative 21. 6 minus 4k is a positive 2k equals, that cancels out, and the negative 24 comes down. At this point, it's a two-step equation. Again, we're solving for k. Farthest away is the minus 21. So I'm going to start by adding 21 to both sides. And when I do that, the 2k comes down, 21's cancel out. And negative 24 plus 21 is a negative 3. And again, if you need to use your calc, feel free. And then the last step is to get rid of the times 2. To get rid of the times 2, we're going to divide by 2. Because I can't divide this by 2 and I can't reduce it, it's already reduced. You'll see the answer on the bottom is negative 3/2. And so always check that, make sure you're getting the right answer. And so you can go to the very bottom of that classroom document and you'll see it's negative 3/2. Alright, I'm hoping you're starting to get the idea of this, but let's just do one more just in case. And then if you still have questions, I'll be there tomorrow to answer them. But let's look at one more, number 3. And then I'm going to leave you to try some working with your partner, see if you can get it. Number 3 is negative 7/6 equals just a normal p plus 1/3 plus 2. Again, there's lots of ways you could solve this, but the trick we learned today is to clear out the fractions, to make this no longer a fraction problem, to get rid of this third and rid of this sixth. So again, we're going to look at the denominators, which are 3 and 6, and we're going to look for the LCM of 3 and 6, of just the denominators. So the LCM of 3 and 6 is 6, because both of these numbers go into 6. 3 times 2 is 6, and 6 times 1 is 6. So the LCM of both of those is 6. So we're going to multiply everything by 6. So as long as you multiply each thing, again, there's 4 things here. As long as you multiply all 4 by 6, you should be fine. And then it should get rid of the fractions altogether. So on this one, negative 7 times 6 is negative 42. Negative 42 divided by 6 just gives me back the negative 7. Another way you can think of it is the 6 divided by 6 cancel out, just leave you the negative 7. Equals 6 times p, that's just 6p. 1/3 times 6, 6 times 1 is 6, 6 divided by 3 is 2. So that turns into a plus 2, again, plus sign coming down. This is a positive times a positive divided by a positive, so it stays positive. And finally, a positive 2 times 6 is a positive 12. How you solve it from here, again, is kind of up to you. For me, I would probably combine these two because I know that 2 plus 12 is 14. And I would just turn it into a two-step that way. Negative 7 equals 6p plus 14. And then I would go from there. If I want to get p by itself, farthest away is the plus 14. I'm going to start by subtracting it. Negative 7 minus 14. Again, use a calc if you need. When they're both negatives or they're both positives, you can just add up the numbers. So 7 plus 14 is 21, and then you keep the signs. Equals 6p. 14s cancel out. And finally, we're going to get rid of this times 6 by dividing by 6. And we have some cleanup to do. We could try to reduce this fraction. To do so, we have to think what numbers go into 21 and 6. I would say 3 goes into both, so I could divide both of these by 3 if I wanted to. 21 divided by 3 is negative 7, and 6 divided by 3 is 2. So I'm going to think that the answer is going to say negative 7 halves. And if we go to the bottom of our Google of our doc, we can see the answer number 3 is negative 7 halves. So there was 3 of them I did with you. They're all kind of done the same way, multiplying the denominators. Multiplying everything by the least common multiple of the denominators. And then once you do that, it gets all cleaned up. And notice there's no fractions afterwards, so you don't have to worry about them anymore. And that's the nice thing about the trick of clearing up fractions. Try to finish 4 through 10. And if you run into questions, ask the person next to you, see if you can get some help. Watch the video again. You're more than welcome to watch the video as many times as necessary. And tomorrow we'll do a warm-up on clearing fractions to see what questions you still have. Don't forget at the end of this, I also want you to resubmit your week 5 grades. And so you'll see an email announcement that I returned your GPA sheets. Just put in your 5 new grades or 6 new grades, recalculate your GPA, and then make a new goal for this week. You'll notice some of you met your goal from last week, some of you didn't, but still check that out to make sure that you get that done. And then I will see you guys tomorrow. Hopefully you're having a good day. See you later.